It was just another day. The park was filled with life as usual, and the air had the peace only a lazy Sunday afternoon could bring. Birds leapt from tree to tree, singing. Their songs blended with the soft giggles of children running around the park with water bubbles. The sun was just beginning to set after a hot day. Couples strolled hand in hand. Joggers waved by with rhythmic footfalls that could make you swear they had practiced. Parents sat on the benches, watching their kids and admiring them. Barron Trump moved through it all in silence. With hands in pockets and a hoodie over his head, the teenager liked to keep his distance from the public. However, despite his craving for discretion, his tall frame set him apart in the crowd. Dressed in a casual black hoodie and dark jeans, he looked like any other young man going about his day. Except how he carried himself was different. There was something about him, a quiet class, an effortless elegance, something only he wasn't aware of. Suddenly, a voice cut through the air. Barron stopped, not because the voice was familiar, but because it was bold and its statement was accusatory. "Christianity is a lie, a ridiculous fairy tale." Barron's steps dragged. He wanted to walk away. He was well on his way when the voice echoed again. "Jesus Christ is no different from Oreos. He's just another make-believe character." At this point, Barron could not hold back himself. His gaze searched for the cause of the outburst, and he found him. A man stood on the steps of a fountain in the middle of St. Paul Park. His hands gestured wildly as he spoke. Although the crowd in front of him was only a handful, their focus on him showed that he had commanded their attention and trust. Barron looked at the man, who was sharply dressed in a black button-up shirt and blue slacks, his salt and pepper hair slicked back. He looked no less than a man in his 40s, yet his voice carried the authority, confidence, and razor-sharp mockery of a man who had lived since Methuselah's time. "This," he said, waving a book in the air, "is the greatest way anyone can choose to waste his time." Barron's eyes followed the book in his hand. It was the Bible. He tilted his head, and his gaze sharpened. The people around him had already doubled in number. At first it was just a handful. Now they were enough to form a semicircle. The man's strong claims drew in several eyes. Some watched with curiosity, while others just watched for entertainment. However, no one spoke up or challenged the man. The man smirked. The silence could only mean one thing. They believed him. He could even be Jesus Christ. "How many of you grew up believing this?" he asked, and the Bible rose again. "How many of you were told he walked on water, healed the sick, and rose from the dead? This is the same person who never shows up when his believers need him. Doesn't that show that he's just another main character in a book? You can enjoy a great story, but can we get a response from a fictional character?" A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. A few chuckled. "Where is he now?" He pressed on. "Where's this tomb he was buried in? When your loved ones suffered, when you prayed, when you fasted?" He made air quotes when he said the word. "Where was he? Did you get anything in return?" People exchanged glances at each other. Some nods began to move around the crowd, nods of agreement that they didn't get anything in return. Barron's brows furrowed, not in anger but with concern. He was concerned that while this man was here condemning his faith, he was also cutting down on the little hope that people had left. Meanwhile, the man's confidence grew, as did his voice. "You want to know the truth?" He stepped down. "The truth is, Jesus Christ never saved anyone. He was never real." This time, the crowd's reaction was more pronounced. Gasps filled the air. A few scoffs rippled through. Uncomfortable shrugs and question-filled glances passed around the gathered group. This man aimed to shake the cores of the religion people held so dearly, and he was winning. The man took it further, as if that wasn't enough. He looked up, spread his arms wide, and bellowed, "If Jesus is real, let him stop me right now. Let him strike me down, smite me, curse me with a disease, anything, anything to prove his existence." The park fell into a thick silence, as if they were half expecting thunder to strike and heads to roll. A few seconds of deafening silence passed, and the man laughed dryly, returning to the highest step of the park. "See, nothing," he shrugged. "But this is the same God that people claim wrecked the Titanic. This is the same God they said parted the Red Sea. Hell, this is the same God they said gives us life. Are we supposed to believe this?" Barron's gaze darkened. "Instead of striving to live for a God who doesn't really care if you die or live, you should strive more to make your life better. There's no one up there, my friend." With that point established, the end of the preaching had finally come. A few people clapped, others silently shook their heads and walked away. Still, no one objected. Barron stood still, unable to move. His lips itched, and his stubborn side reared its head. He was a Christian. He had believed in God since childhood, and that belief shaped him. The discipline taught in the Bible also played a part in his life as a teenager, and he had more than one reason to believe God existed. Barron Trump stepped forward for the first time, ready to risk the discretion he always wanted. "Do you think silence is proof of absence, sir?" Barron did not have the type of voice that cut through thick clouds. His voice did not carry an edge threatening to trample anyone's belief. It was a calm, yet strong and steady voice of reason. The crowd stopped, heads turned. The man raised his gaze, and they landed on a teenage boy with a hoodie over his head. His lips curled in a smile. This was his favorite part, the part where he shook their core and an angry Christian would attempt to correct and convert him. "I see. We have a believer amongst us." Barron stepped forward, his hands still in his pockets. The hoodie partially covered his face and a blank expression. When a child closes his eyes, he thinks the world disappears. But it hasn't. In this case, you're like a blind child who thinks the world has disappeared because he has his eyes closed. The crowd is shocked by the sharp response. Ears perk up, eyes flare. The man's smirk faltered, but his arrogance remained. He took a step forward, replacing the faded smirk on his face with a hint of amusement. "A teenage philosopher?" he asked, tilting his head. "You think God is watching over us, caring about what we do, right?" Barron responded with a slow nod. "The Bible says so." The man's jaw clenched and unclenched quickly. "Cute, but let's be real, kid. The Bible is fiction. A collection of myths rewritten by men who wanted power. People who used fear to control people. What God uses fear to control people. A God that uses fear to control people." Barron repeated the statement, his brows furrowed in a pensive contemplation. "When you tell your child, don't touch the naked wire, it'll hurt. Are you trying to control him with fear?" The man's eyes narrowed. Barron continued, "You say the Bible is a collection of myths rewritten by people who wanted power. I say the Bible is a collection of the stories of a God who has power." The man opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Barron silenced him. "You think you dedicate your time to prove that God doesn't exist, but you've only been trying to discharge his already proven existence. Jesus Christ is no more than one of those Greek gods, Odin, Zeus." "Then why don't you go fight Zeus?" Barron asked, his voice garnering the authority of a man with confidence. "Jesus Christ is no more than Zeus, yet no one stands at the top of a fountain screaming Zeus is not real." The crowd exchanges glances, and soft chuckles escape their lips. The man went silent, speechless, perhaps plotting his comeback. Barron stepped closer, his tone no different from before. "Tell me, if you can prove he doesn't exist, what would become of your career? Would you truly be fulfilled?" The man's expression cracked just enough to show his astonishment. Then, quickly, he snapped out of it, laughing. "Let's not deviate into my career, kid. Show me your proof, right here, right now. Show me something undeniable." A ripple ran through the crowd. Expectant faces looked up to Barron. "Is there proof that Jesus Christ exists?" Barron went quiet for a moment, and at that moment, the man's confidence returned. Barron opened his mouth, then shut it. He was still trying to recollect his thoughts. Then suddenly a voice rang in the crowd, curbing the silence that had choked the air. "Wait a minute!" The woman's eyes lit up, phone in hand. She pivoted the screen towards the crowd. "That's Keith Harrington!" The crowd stirred. Heads turned. Barron frowned. He didn't recognize the name, but the crowd's murmurs told him he was a name that mattered. As the murmurs grew, someone pulled out their phone. As soon as he saw the camera pointed at him, Barron saw it, the flicker of panic in his eyes. This wasn't just an angry speaker. He was one of the most famous atheists in the world, an outspoken critic and a best-selling author. It was just a debate in the park, but now, everyone was watching. The debate about whether Jesus Christ was real was common in the park, but mostly, the believers of faith, the pastors, and the preachers took to parks, schools, and public places to preach Jesus Christ. Never had it been heard that an atheist was found in the park preaching against Jesus Christ. But then again, this was Keith Harrington, an Emmy Award-winning author. Maybe it was the millions of copies he sold per book, or maybe it was just his firm belief that Keith was known as the only atheist preaching against God, especially whenever he had a new book coming. Barron looked around him. There was more than one camera flashing at him. The atmosphere was changing. Something heavier than a common debate was settling in the air, and Barron couldn't tell what it was. He tilted his head slightly, holding Harrington's gaze as he spoke. "Would you accept proof if it were given?" Keith released a soft scoff. "I'm here for that," he shrugged. "Won't you twist it? Find an excuse? Try to diverge and explain it away?" Barron's voice was now lower than before. It seemed like the debate had shifted to a heart-to-heart between him and Keith. "Finding proof is not the problem, sir. It's admitting it." The man's voice grew loud even though Barron was trying to keep it low. "If your proof is strong enough, why would I deny it? All I need is a sign, something that cancels my beliefs. Here you are. You have a chance to win a soul. That's something in your religion, isn't it?" Barron looked around. His eyes wandered from face to face before landing on Keith Harrington. "You are a proof of God, sir. We all are." A young boy is told a story about his father, whom he's never seen. If he decides to look for him, he must first believe that his father exists before he starts looking for him, don't you think? "But I am not looking for him," Keith replied with a dejected scoff. "No, you're not. You're looking for signs that he doesn't exist, but the fight you have within you proves his existence. That's the real sign. That's the real sign that God exists." Scattered murmurs spread through the crowd. Harrington stepped closer, eyes piercing into Barron's, but the teenager stood unwavering. "There's no such thing as a God, kid. All we have here is science, evolution, and survival. A father who births me and abandons me is different compared to a being who is termed divine, yet the world lives in this chaos. Despite the chaos, what do you say to the people whose lives have changed by faith? The people who have been healed, the ones who were addicted, depressed, lost, and then something greater than themselves found them? Isn't that divinity?" "No, kid. Those were tricks. They tricked themselves into thinking that some greater power did the work when it was just psychology at best," Keith refuted. "What about the miracles that science can't explain? The things that existed long before science was invented?" Barron pressed on. "Name one," Keith replied sharply. "Where does our consciousness come from?" Barron asked. The crowd held its breath. "The devil's kettle, the concept of consciousness, the incorruptible bodies of saints." Keith was instantly taken aback. His words were lost on him. That's no proof of divinity," he remarked. "But you agree that it is proof of something beyond our understanding," Barron argued. Before Harrington could say anything else, soft murmurs erupted in the crowd and shouted, "That's true, though." "Oh, come on," he bristled. "Where in the Bible does it say that your God created these things?" "Genesis chapter 1, sir. Psalms 24, 1. Barron answered. Harrington quickly picked up the same Bible he was waving and brushed through the pages. "The earth is the Lord's, and its fullness thereof." Harrington read it a second time. "The earth is the Lord's, and its fullness thereof." Suddenly, he burst into a cackle of laughter. "Your God is not the only God who claims to own the earth, kid. In Africa, a god named Amma supposedly created the world from clay." Barron tilted his head. "Do you believe in right and wrong?" "Yes, you don't need God for morality," he said immediately. "You need human reason and decency." "So, morality is an opinion?" Barron asked. "No, it is based on simple logic. Without an old book, we would have known that killing and stealing are wrong. Morality benefits society. Look at the Constitution. What's in the American Constitution protects its citizens, and most of them can't be found in the old book." Barron nodded slowly. "In that case, a group of people can decide what's right or wrong." "Of course," Harrington huffed. "So in that case, if a group of people can decide something good, that makes it good?" Barron pressed on. "Yes, kid, it's logical." Barron lowered his voice, but the crowd lowered their noise too, eager to hear his response. "Then, by that same concept, slavery was actually right some decades ago?" A murmur crashed the silence. Harrington's mouth opened slightly as if searching for words, but none came. "If a group of people can decide morality, then how can we say anything is truly wrong? If one group says genocide is evil and another says it is necessary, who's right?" The crowd held their breaths, waiting for Harrington's reply. He exhaled sharply, turning to Barron. "There are some things you would never understand, kid." "No, sir, it's quite far from that. When things are made clear, it is never confusing. The Bible doesn't change. It doesn't shift based on a group of people. It calls good good. It calls evil evil. You reject the standard, but have nothing solid to replace it with." The crowd went silent for a moment, Then suddenly, a clap echoed in the air. Another and another then joined it. Harrington's face fell. After the applause had died down, Harrington exhaled sharply and asked, "So now what? Are you saying the ancient rules are the standard? Stone people for adultery? Displace communities?" "You're quoting the laws meant for a specific people at a specific time, sir. We aren't the Israelites. We are now saved by Jesus Christ, who came to fulfill the law. You've read the Bible, haven't you?" Harrington's face twitched just slightly. If Jesus Christ really isn't real, why are you so afraid to be wrong? Harrington couldn't answer right away, and that silence was enough. Barron looked around. The loops in Harrington's arguments were becoming more than he could number. For his career's sake, Barron decided to end the debate. His aim was not to humiliate the man, but to counter his beliefs. "It takes more courage to believe in something divine, sir. It is a point of total submission to a being we can't even see. But if we can see him, then what is faith?" he asked. By the time Barron got home that evening, his phone was already buzzing with notifications, and messages from his friends poured in. "Is this you? Pick up." Barron groaned tiredly. Someone had uploaded the full debate to the internet, and within hours, it was everywhere. Clips circulated at the speed of lightning. The moment when Harrington faltered, the moment his smirk vanished. Those were the final words that sealed the debate. Yet, overall, the teenager was commended for remaining calm. The Christian commended the faceless teenager for displaying humility, despite the atheist's criticisms. Barron was never one to seek the spotlight. He never wanted a public debate. He never wanted to win. It wasn't even a debate. He was only trying to tell the truth. However, he worried about Harrington. He had tried to contain the debate when he noticed the blood drain from Harrington's face, but he was too late. Harrington's defeat was pronounced long before he cared to admit it. For the first time in years, the outspoken critic of Christianity had nothing to say until 1 week later. Harrington was seated in the world's most watched TV show and exchanged handshakes with the host. "Keith," the host began, "you've faced many debates before. If I remember correctly, you go out in search of these debates. But this one was different. What happened?" Harrington forced a soft chuckle. "The kid was sharp. I underestimated him." The host leaned forward, taking in his features. "So, are you now a Christian?" "No," Harrington replied. "Our arguments weren't enough to change my belief." The host remained quiet, observing the hesitation in Harrington's words. "But it was enough to let the people believe in whatever they want to believe in." The host laughed, saying, "After all, no one goes around screaming that Zeus is not real." Harrington's jaw tightened, but now that he thought about it, the kid was right. Was there a point in discouraging people from believing in what they wanted to believe? He believed in science. Did anybody tell him science doesn't exist? After a long pause, Harrington stood up quietly. "I think I owe the Christian body an apology," he said. The host raised an eyebrow, confused. "An apology?" Harrington nodded softly, turning to face the camera. "My friend, the kid, told me something. He said it takes greater courage to believe in something we can't see. I believe in science. People believe in Allah, others believe in the moon, and anything they want to. I apologize for making you all the crazy ones. We are allowed our right to choose our religion, and I didn't realize it until 1 week ago that I was projecting and forcing my own belief on others, and for that, I apologize." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Not the host, not Keith Harrington. Then, finally, Harrington stood up quietly. "Thanks for having me on your show, Gregory." A week passed. Keith Harrington was standing outside his garage. His phone beeped with a notification. He took out the phone and realized a text had been sent to him. Harrington frowned. He was tired of the debate clip being thrown in his face. But this time, something was different. It wasn't just a debate. It was security footage from the park that day. Footage no one had noticed before. In that video, when Harrington mocked God and challenged him to do something, something happened. A heavy and sharp branch snapped off a tree behind him, but missed him by mere inches. It wasn't staged. It wasn't planned. It was real. Before he could understand the video himself, the internet exploded. Some called it a mere coincidence. Others said the clip was tailored. And Keith? He knew it was more than just a coincidence. It wouldn't be the first time he has escaped near-death experiences. They say once is a coincidence, twice is a pattern, but thrice? That's a sign. What do you think? Do you believe silence is proof of absence, or is faith the ability to trust beyond what we see? If God is not real, why do we spend so much time trying to disprove him? Are we rejecting God because of lack of proof, or because we fear what his existence would mean for our lives? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our page. Before you go, click on the next video below.